and start this up. You guys who are out there watching this presentation today, if you want to throw questions up in the chat, by all means, go ahead and we'll address those as we move along. Excited to get kind of our first 8-man segment in here tonight. We've got Coach Plant, who's the head coach at Old Orchard Beach, his defensive coordinator, Coach Weber, his offensive coordinator, Coach Gallant, and his special teams guy, Coach Cretion. I know Coach Cretion and Coach Plant and I go way back to my Oak Hill days, man. We used to play back then, right?
We did.
A long time ago. You guys were reversed back then. Coach Cretion was the head coach back then, right?
Yeah, he's mounted up.
That was a long time ago.
Us in team camp with our girls basketball teams, Mike.
Yeah, we were, and that was when I decided I couldn't coach girls basketball anymore. We had to play Toby Martin, and she, from Maranacook, and she just roasted us. And I went back saying, "There's no way I can do this. We got to play that twice." And she was a freshman. I couldn't take 4 years of that, my kid worked out with her last year. She was one of his trainers, so it's funny to have that conversation with her that she basically drove me out of coaching girls hoop. But, so excited to have you guys here tonight. Just want to talk, a little bit of 8-man football stuff. You guys obviously were pretty successful, last year in terms of making the transition. It was our first year of 8-man football here in Maine, and you guys were the small school champions. So, Coach Plant, if you want to kind of start, and then we can go around to each guy. What do you think were some keys to that initial transition?
Well, I think, I have a unique situation because I'm the athletic director as well. So I had some early conversations in the previous summer, previous fall with Mike and Mike at the MPA and got a pretty good pulse that this was something that they were strongly advocating. And, I personally thought it made complete sense for us looking at the landscape of athletics in the state, enrollment in the state, our kids and their makeup. So, I kind of embraced it right away, knowing it was coming. And then obviously, you talked about my staff. I knew if I had, I have pretty fortunate, right? 2 former head coaches that are pretty established, and Jason coming from an established program in Madison. So once I knew that they were all in, and obviously John Suddy's our principal superintendent, so pretty good football guy there too. So kind of all those ducks were in a row right away behind the scenes. So we just said from the get-go, we're all in. We're not going to second guess it. We're not going to, we're not going to adhere to any outside pressures. We are kind of on the inside, know what's best for our kids and our program in the future. And we had an idea of what it looked like statewide. So, we jumped on full bore, and then we slowly, what I think was the second key was we started trickling in. Get back, yeah?
Well, no, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I just turn that, fix it.
We started trickling in information to the kids and our athletes, and they were excited about it from the get-go. And the timing worked out as the season wrapped up, and we'll talk more about that. But even after the season, it was in the forefront. The state was talking about it. And Mike at the MPA knew that we were all in, and they kind of threw us in the front of it. So whenever a topic got brought up, whether it was, the Boston Globe, the Wall Street Journal came and interviewed our kids, it was pretty much in the forefront even after football season. So our kids were kind of hooked. And we did some things towards the end of the regular season to tie them into, which we'll get into. So, I think commitment, a strong coaching staff and administration support, and then the kids bought in way early. So we were fortunate.
Kurt, what do you think were some of maybe the keys to the buy-in from the kids early on in that process?
Well, it started with us really spreading the word with those guys. And as Dean said, it kind of made it a big event, and this was something special. And it was right for our school and our program. The kids really understood that and bought in. But I mean, the positive effect that it's had on our school and our team, and even our community. It's just a renewed culture. So really selling it to the kids wasn't that big of a deal, because we convinced them that, football's football. There'll be some changes, and that's our job is to communicate that stuff to you. And they really loved it. They were into it, and we had a couple good classes there where it made it easy, but that was the kids part was the easy part.
Coach Gallant and Coach Weber, you guys are calling the O and calling the D. Just talk a little bit about the transition as a coaching staff in kind of each of your areas about, what your preparation was like, trying to get ready for this, from a coordinator standpoint.
I started with a lot of research. So my background with football is defensive as a player, as a coach, as a longtime assistant coach, head coach. We were always very strong defensively, and that's where all of my experience as far as game planning and developing and having answers in game to what the other team was doing, that was my comfort level. And so when I started researching, spent a lot of time, online looking around the country and emailing coaches at schools. Kansas, man, they have their own coaches association for 8-man. And so they have a dedicated website for 8-man football. And so I just started looking at scoring differentials and all their records over the past 5 years. And I was able to hook up with a coach at Clifton Clyde High School who had a crazy scoring differential at the time. And I'm expecting to see some high-powered spread offense. And, I had been a spread offensive guy for a while, or a version of it. And when I talked to him and he finally got back to me and we had some phone conversations, the first thing he said to me was, if you're a defensive coach in 11-man, you're going to be miserable in 8-man. So I immediately texted Dean and said, I don't want to do defense anymore. And he said, no problem. And
Welcome, Jason.
and then we started talking about offense. And he told me basically it's a variation of a single wing. It's very run-oriented, couple formations. And part of me always liked the mentality of the old school Craig Kilborn, Gorham Ram double wing, that when they were really good and rolling, the physicality of the football, the way they played. As an offensive lineman in high school, I appreciated that. And so, I started looking at the kids we had. We don't have great big kids. This is pretty much double teams every play. We're sending 2, 3, sometimes 4 lead blockers through a hole. So we just felt it would be a good fit for us personally with who we had. We were young, and we started, like Dean said, we started getting kids excited about this. That last year we were playing 11-man in that developmental league. And we actually took the offense we thought we were going to use and threw it into an 11-man and did it a little bit at the end of the year. The kids got excited about it. We were showing the kids film, during our 11-man practices where we're talking about 8-man concepts. And they were young and great kids, and they got on board. We wanted to keep the learning simple. The great thing is we had a couple years of experience with those kids running some spread things. So we were able to kind of go back and forth pretty seamlessly. The biggest learning curves we had offensively was figuring out how to develop a practice. Because, it's the needs are different based on what we do offensively now compared to what we used to do. The amount of kids we have, with 20 to 25 kids on a roster, it's hard to practice the same way that, we used to at Deering when I had 65 kids on the roster. So that took us a few weeks, and we're constantly tweaking the practice plan until we got comfortable and our kids were really involved in practice. And then, as a spread coach, it's different only having those 3 fewer guys. So that was a big learning curve for us. And once we got that, the kids got it. it was pretty good because we got to a point where our kids were able to recognize what the other team was doing and tell us what to do for adjustments.
Defensively, I preach football's football, and you still got to cover, you still got to make plays, you still got to tackle. So nothing really was different for me defensively. Now there is a lot of subtle differences when you transition from 11-man to 8-man, and we struggled a little bit early on with that. Really covering, knowing who's eligible. It was a struggle early on, and people were scoring on us. And I think some of those differences was identifying the formations quickly, having our kids identifying who's eligible, who's not eligible, and in their alignment. Just like an 11-man and an 8-man, tackling is crucial. But with 8-man, one missed tackle, they're going to score a touchdown. So we highly stressed about no cutbacks, making sure we're swarming to the ball and never giving up on the play. Same philosophy as 11-man, but very critical in 8-man. There's so many single tackles or a guy just barely tackling and then the other guy's coming on, saves a lot of touchdowns. Having that free safety, our free safety is not a traditional free safety. You don't really have a traditional free safety in 8-man. Your free safety is really a safety that's really a linebacker that needs to cover, but as soon as he knows he's run, he needs to help with the run. And I believe that's one of the most important positions on the defensive side of the ball, and having your strong defensive ends. We started in the state game. I mean, our ends got hooked a lot, and they scored a lot of touchdowns. Having good free safety, solid defensive ends to bookend the run game really helps you and allows alley play where we kind of form our defense where we want you to run to this spot and everyone swarms to the ball. Early on, we got killed by quarterback scramble. And we made vow that we were not going to let that happen. We spied, we blitzed a lot, but we made sure the quarterback scramble was not going to beat us. And early on, we learned that a lesson. It would be 4th and long and 4th and forever. And one missed tackle, usually the best athlete is their quarterback in 8-man. And we want to make sure that wasn't the case with us. And the biggest thing mentally wise for our kids is be prepared to be scored upon. In 8-man, there are some games that were low scoring, but they have to have the mentality that you're going to get scored upon. And luckily, we had an offense that scored some points that saved us some games. And but our kids knew that they're going to get scored, but get any way we can to get a guy down, tackled. Next play. Just don't let them cross the goal line. Other than that, those are the kind of subtly differences defensively, but we really preach football's football, and you got to tackle and play the game.
Thanks, Coach. Dean, Coach Gallant mentioned you guys took a little bit of a look at what some of the schools in Kansas are doing, and maybe you and Kurt could talk just a little bit about what some of the other research looked like. Like if I'm going to 8-man and I'm making that transition from 11-man, outside of the state of Maine, where are some places or some resources that I might be able to use?
You want to go, Kurt? Or?
Well, actually, that John might be able to handle that a little bit better because he actually did a lot of research, I think, contacting schools out of the state.
Yeah, when he bailed on the defense and jumped to O, he kind of felt guilty, I think. Oklahoma was another state I know we tapped, but I think predominantly once we tied into the school in Kansas and we liked it, we focused our attention on them, and they were great, super. I think they shared most of the playbook with John.
What was the name of that school, Coach Gallant?
That's Clifton Clyde High School.
Yep.
They're a perennial, they're always top, 2-3 team in their division, in their conference and things like that. So he's been super helpful, and we talk, through Messenger or through Twitter. We probably have 2 or 3 conversations a week that usually start around 11:30 at night and go for quite a bit, just touching base with each other, sharing film. It's interesting, you know, as you start watching it. Like when I first started, when he was sending me film, the teams, and when I saw film from other states, the teams that were trying to run your traditional spread with zone and things like that, the one back, there was a lot of hard times for them. It looked like on film, you know, and so it just kind of made it sense that we were going to do some sort of totally change our offensive thinking from what we were to what we want to be.
We did. There's some great resources actually now. It seems like since we started talking about it in Maine, it's you know, we're finding all these 8-man on Twitter. I mean, they're posting
8-man academy, right?
Yeah, but we found trying to find what we wanted to do with special teams. You know, watching Clifton Clyde's film and whatever we could find. There was some challenges when it comes to special teams. You know, it's still a pretty big field to cover with 7 and a kicker. So we looked and found some different philosophies after the first couple of games of what we thought would work. But yeah, that 8-man academy is a really good resource, and you can see a ton of film.
Kurt, you want to expand on the special teams piece a little bit more and just talk about what does that look like in an 8-man game?
Well, just as offense and defense, you know, transitioned, obviously special teams had to too. And a lot of it, some was just, you know, trial by fire where the field, there's a lot more space and you had to tweak a lot of things. But what we found is there's definitely a way to be sound in all special teams. So not only sound, but there's also not unlike 11-man, there's a way to gain an advantage too with special teams. But you know, I think in kickoff, you know, you're talking 4 on one side, 3 on the other. It's just a matter of where you put the ball. If you're in the ball's in the middle of the field, you know, you're going to kick to the 4-man side, or you're going to kick away. Is your kicker going to cover? So that takes a little. You know, you got to think about that. You put the ball in the hash, which we ended up doing, and then you got a strong side, you got a weak side. Do you want to overload one side to the boundary, put the 4 guys to the boundary for maybe an onside look? So there's a lot of different things you can do there. We didn't philosophically, we didn't really kick away too much, and we had a pretty good kicker. We actually did a lot of squibbing. You know, and just you know, played the field position game. KOR, same type of thing. Not unlike 11-man football. It's all alignment based. You know, you get the 3-3-2 look. You know, you can still wedge the middle. You can still do a man numbered return. So that's all basically about, you know, what your philosophy is. But one of the big challenges was punt, you know, because you don't have that typical protection that you do with the you know, the 2 up bat, the 2 aces and a guy protecting the foot. You know, you can go spread. We saw some spread teams, but you know, you're a little soft in your protection there. We actually put in a rugby punt because that was a pretty good look for us. So, but protecting it is an issue, and same thing with extra point. You know, you only have one guy protecting at that point, so we didn't see a whole lot of extra point from teams we played. We actually did kick a lot because we had a pretty good kicker, but that was definitely a challenge as well.
Coach Plant, I got a couple of things for you. One is these games pretty high scoring, aren't they?
Yeah, I think in general, you know, there was an uptick in scoring compared to 11-man. Yeah, little longer at times because people aren't afraid to fling it around a little bit. So,
and most people going for 2.
Yeah, I think if we polled it, I bet it was 70-30, 2 to extra point.
And what if you we had 10 teams last year in 8-man, correct?
Yep.
And what the field was the same?
Lengthwise, same. Width, they reduced it to a little over 40 yards side to side, so about 10
6 yards on either side, maybe.
Yep.
And real quick, there is a ton of space between the hash and the sideline. Like you don't think of it, and then that first time we stepped on the field for our exhibition, for our scrimmage, you're standing on the hash, and it's like there's almost the entire field. It feels like you have so much space. So, those things in 11-man where you have your boundary plays, there's really not. That doesn't really exist or matter that much in 8-man because there is a lot of space.
That's good point. What about just from the teams that you guys saw out of those 10? What were different teams running? Were a lot of teams like a wing tee or double wing, single wing type of style? Were there some spread teams out there? Do we have some variety this year?
Yeah, I think variety is probably a good way to describe it. I think it's funny because some of them morphed and kind of evolved as the season went on. So like teams like, I'll give you for Sockby Valley, for example, we were watching them early and it was like 4, empty sets. And then when they started having some success, they went away from that and got a little more, pound and grind formations. Mount Ararat and Old Orchard, fortunate enough to play the last game of the season, were both more power running teams. But yeah, it was a good mix.
Talk about, you mentioned that Mount Ararat game. They were the big school, the large school champion, correct?
Yep.
So you guys won the small school, and then you got to play them for basically the 8-man state championship at Fitzy, right?
Correct.
So just talk about that experience, what that was like for the kids, and kind of how cool that was.
It's funny because, I think of all the things that I had to continuously answer as the season went on, even when we were having successes, why are we playing schools bigger? I thought that was the point of 8-man. And I had to explain to people that, you have to start somewhere. And there's 5 small schools and 5 larger schools. And this is the best case scenario right now. So, nobody went in blind. Everybody knew someone big was going to play someone small in the last game of the season. But our kids were excited about it. I think we were healthy at the time. The first time we played them, we weren't particularly healthy. When we got to the state game, we were in great shape. We'd had some momentum. We were rolling pretty well, but to their credit, at the end, they were a better football team than us last year. But the experience was phenomenal. And, I think talking to the MPA, it was one of the larger crowds. It was kind of cool to have a separate Saturday. I think to the MPA's credit, they really did it right. And they took a lot of input from the 8-man schools, and the whole situation. Skip was there as one of them. I believe he was our locker room guy, him and Don Wilson. So from start to finish, it was first class. It was great. They redid the field. They redid the hash marks. They did everything we needed them to do to put on a good product. And I think, when at the end of the day, the 10 teams that bit the bullet and did it last year, the product was pretty good. The whole rollout was well done. And I think that's one of the reasons that the 16 additional teams jumped in. I think of those 16, I would bet 10 or 12 wanted to last year, but were a little apprehensive for whatever reason, community pressure, administrative pressure, alumni, who knows? But it was a great year. Obviously we would have loved to have finished with a win. That's the competitive nature of what we do, but zero regrets with the way we rolled it out. We did a lot of promotion and it was fun. It was a great year.
How long do you think it really took you to win over the community with the switchover?
First game.
I would say the first game was, when we decided to, I called the MPA in June and petitioned to play the night before the rest of the state opened, and did a tailgate and tried to get everybody there, and we promoted it pretty well. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves because we didn't look back. We didn't take a lot of outside input from our community. We put it out there and answered questions, but it wasn't going to be a forum where people that weren't in the know were going to try to make decisions. So we felt pressure to put a good product out and have hopefully a successful year. So, I think after that first night, any of the naysayers in terms of, was it fun? Was it good football? Was it exciting? I think we won a ton over that Thursday night.
Coach Weber, you want to talk for a minute about, and we'll kind of go around the horn a little bit on this one with kind of each of your areas, but what were some of the hurdles that you guys had to kind of overcome through the process? Specifically, Coach Weber, from the defensive side of the ball, like what were some of the more difficult things that you had to work through?
Like I said earlier, I think being sound on defense, in that free safety role, having that athlete having to be a cover guy, but quickly read, run. He's almost up at a linebacker depth. We play a 3-2-3, and that safety is at 7 yards, so he's right behind the linebackers, but still responsible for coverage. That's one of the big being sound, I think, is the biggest hurdle that we did. Other than that, tackling and covering and lining up right and getting your kids in alignment, letting them be successful, really helped. But other than that, teaching them to tackle right, get the guy down, and play football. But that free safety was the one thing in making sure the quarterback doesn't run all over you.
Yeah, I would think a scrambling quarterback in that 8-man on the big field would be a pretty good advantage to have for a team, huh? I know Liberty from Maranacook, he seemed like he had a pretty good year running around. I'd see him on the highlights at night.
That Booth Bay everyone had a pretty much good athlete at the quarterback position that could easily break a tackle and run for 20, 30 yards, because you really don't, unless you assign someone to him, you don't have someone for him. And so we made it a point to make sure that position is not the one that hurt us.
I think our quarterback rushed for 800, something like that. And the Booth Bay quarterback, the Crocker kid, was very difficult to defend. The Gray quarterback was a good athlete. So yeah, the Yarmouth, it's tough. That's the challenge.
Yeah, when Coach Weber was talking about that free safety position, I was thinking, is it Brian Roberts was the kid that played for me in the Lobster Bowl a few years ago? We had him playing linebacker. Man, how good would he be in that kind of role, huh?
Yeah. Problem is, he doesn't try to get hit.
He was a dude, man. He had a great Lobster Bowl playing inside backer and for Coach Marston at 3-4.
The other big aspect on defense is putting your corners on an island. It's very hard you really can't do like a cover 2 straight across the board. You usually can do a cover 2 to one side and go man backside, but really you can't run a cover 2 unless you're going to give up all run or all the run surface up front. So that is another little difference that we really had to preach, that you're on an island. Our corners, you give up the run. You have to, when you know it's run, come up and help, but your job is to cover the entire time. And sometimes it was, for a scrambling quarterback, quite a bit of time. So,
Coach Gallant, what about on offense? As you kind of piece that thing together and figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to use some personnel and formations and stuff. Just talk about that a little bit. What was difficult about that, and what were some of the things in the forefront of your mind?
Yeah, I was sitting here while Jason was talking and trying to come up with what's the one thing I'm going to say, and there was a bunch of issues throughout the year. The biggest thing was, just to keep it focused on our team and the way we play offense. It's a direct snap to one kid, and we're not a base offense, and everybody else is blocking. And getting the kids to buy in and be selfless with that was a big challenge. Coaching so many years, one offense and or one defense, as I'm sure some of you veteran guys can say, you develop answer keys. And that first year of 8-man and totally new offense, we went in and week out saying, what is the other team going to do? Because there is no film you can go back and look at as far as an 8-man offense or defense. And you're trying to guess and where they're going to line up, how are they going to try and stop you. There's not that reference point you don't have.
So that was a huge challenge for us. And then the other part was, if we did get out of our base offense, how do you protect the quarterback? Everybody, I think the misconception was this is going to be a wide open, arena football, throw the ball 70 times a game. And there were teams that tried that, and how their quarterback survived is a miracle for some of them. We had some success in the state game throwing the ball, and then it's one adjustment, and if the quarterback holds the ball for that half a second too long, he's in for some big hits, and got to a point where you got to kind of sacrifice some things, and you sacrifice the ability to throw or the health of your kids in certain situations. So all those things were big issues as we went on.
I think we all worry about protecting the quarterback. I know that's always a focus for us too. Coach Plant, there's 16 new teams coming to 8-man next year, correct?
Yes.
So we're going to have 26 8-man teams. In some degree, you guys have a little bit of an upper hand in that you've kind of been there, done that before. But on the other hand, you're going to have probably a fair amount of teams on your schedule that haven't played 8-man, and you're not going to have any idea of what they're going to do, right? You want to talk about that? Just kind of the challenge of maybe facing some new teams next year and how you guys are going to navigate that?
Yeah, I think you'll see even some of the existing 10, when personnel graduating, they may change or things that they've seen. So, it won't be any different than most years. I don't think we won't assume anything. We'll spend our time, getting to games and trying to get a ton of film. I'm sure, when these 16 teams, they might have a little advantage. We were pretty nice. We gave a lot of film out that with teams that were interested in 8-man, it's the right thing to do. So more pressure on John and Jason this year to get creative, I guess. But we'll prepare. I mean, that's never been an issue for us here anyway. We know enough people where if people aren't, willing to share, we'll find it. But there's going to be some challenges and just a whole new personnel group. Like we know a lot of the athletes in this region, Trape, Sockopee, just because we played them in other sports. But now we're going all the way to Millinocket, so got to do a little more research and probably earlier. But so some guy made a pretty good schedule, so a lot of teams are familiar to us.
I get a feeling Coach Bishop is not going to stray too far from the wing T principles up in Millinocket. That might be one of your easier scouts on the new guys, right?
I just hope he doesn't have that cane that he threw at me one year.
Oh man. Want to talk a little bit about practice planning. What was you guys' roster size, just out of curiosity?
I think last year we topped off at 27, but really it was 26 because our only senior tore his knee up in the first half of the preseason game. So we were hovered between 25 and 26. So
with about that, 24, 25 guys, how do you kind of go through the week of practice, and what do you think were some keys to your practice planning this year to move through the season?
I'll chime in quick, and then I'll let these guys, because they're the master planners. But we tied in a little more weight room work, kind of mandatory. We made it part of our practice because of the numbers. It was manageable. We could keep practices to 2 hours or less. After the mandatory MPA rules elapse after the second week. So I mean, we have a pretty big facility now. Our wellness room's improved, so we can fit all 24 in there and be productive. So it's just pretty traditional. Monday, weights and films. We didn't have a ton of JV last year, but that's probably going to change this year by the sounds of things. And then we'd figure out how it would best work with our schedules. But some of these guys are pretty traditional and superstitious. So if we had a good week, we're going to keep offense on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending. We do a lot of night practices here because I'm the AD, so I have some access. So we'll do Monday, Tuesday day, Wednesday, Thursday night practices. which has worked out great for us, right on the game field. So I'll let them get into the specifics in terms of how they structured the offensive practice and the defensive practice.
One change that we made is that, in what I learned coming up through coaching is, the way we always did it, working with Greg Stilfen is, Tuesday was all defense, Wednesday is all offense, and then Thursday was soup to nuts. And we quickly found that wasn't really a good use of our practice time. And I always had the mentality of, we have stuff scheduled and scripted. It's gonna be as long as it takes. If we gotta keep doing things over, we might be there 2.5 hours. If we're crisp and we're focused, we're done in an hour and a half. Once we got our schedule down, we realized we don't need 20 minutes of individual work, because if we have our wide receivers running over, going on, some agility work and catching and doing some specific drills, there's 3 kids, because everybody else is also a running back or a quarterback. So we kind of took all of our skill kids and they all did the same thing. Offensively, we did footwork drill and running. Every skill kid is a running back for us. We throw the ball 5 times a game. So, that we kind of change things. And then we are a no huddle, fast paced team. I thought we'd be huddling up this year, and our kids, once we got into it and they learned it, they were like, "Coach, come on, let's go faster. Give us a play faster." So, we practice fast. I think we pretty much pared our practices down to about an hour and a half. I think Tuesday is a defensive focus, where that's our defensive individual work. But we still, on top of the defensive stuff we do as group and team, we also do, our base run for offense that day. We have like a 15-minute period. And for us, I get a little overexcited when I plan. I probably write down about 40 plays, and we rip through those in 15 minutes. And then we flip that on Tuesday Wednesday, where it's our offensive individual work. And then we do our base offensive stuff, our team pass, all that stuff. And then we do a defensive period at the end. And then, Thursday is still soup to nuts for us.
I think some of the things on defensively wise, I'm not going to go over what John just said because he put in the defensive side, but it was an 11-man compared to 8-man. I remember days when we had to have half line, because we didn't have enough kids to have all 11 on one side and all 11 on the other side. And now we actually have a first team, a second team. We have subs. If kids get injured, I remember times when kids get injured, we'd have to move 6 people to cover that one position. And now we have some depth. I think that's what 8-man allows small schools like us to have some real healthy depth, that we're not putting kids in unsuccessful positions. And I think that was the one thing we saw in practice, is that we actually could conduct a full practice where we could actually see the other team, what they did, how they ran plays, all 8 guys on there instead of half line. So other than that, it's basically the same practice plan for me Monday through Friday.
I will say that Coach Christian may be the best look team quarterback in the state of Maine too. You got the look team.
Oh man, I've seen Coach Filio at work a few times on the news. It seems like every time they cut into a Cape or a SoPo practice, it's Coach Filio playing quarterback. So I think he just does a lot of team defense.
Coincidentally.
I'll take Christian over Filio any day.
I would too, every day, twice on Sunday, man.
But Mike, special teams wise, as far as practice, we're not unlike most guys. We're doing some type of special team pretty much every day. Not all of them every day, but we're gonna hit them all, and then we're gonna hit them again on Thursday when we're soup to nuts. So that doesn't change either.
Sweet. I wanted to ask Coach Plant. You brought up JV. Did you guys play a JV schedule last year? Were you able to do that?
We had 3 games scheduled, and just by chance we got pummeled week 2 to 4 with injuries, whereas when we had them scheduled. So, and most teams agreed. I think some of the largest schools played each other multiple times, like Mount Ararat and Gray. Maybe Cook rolled down a few and played. But yeah, I think the success we had last year, I think our numbers will probably grow a little bit too. And we have a pretty strong senior group, so we should be able to get some JV games. And, and talking to guys like Skip, I think some 11-man teams are looking to promote their sub-varsity programs by offering 8-man. Even if you're on the field, it's just good quality reps. Keep coaches in the huddle. It doesn't matter at this point. Just want to get kids reps because it is hard. I mean, we've been fortunate enough where we had some lopsided games where I think, probably half our games, every kid got in, the exception of maybe 1 or 2, but that was for whatever reason. But yeah, we'd like to expand that piece.
I mean, that's got to be the goal, right? Is that, if you're going to embrace 8-man, and it's really what you're going to be, is that you grow some excitement, you gain some numbers back, and then you have the ability to run, a JV and a varsity program.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. People aren't really sure. 8-man to us is we want to be the best 8-man program in the state. We have no desire to go back to 11-man. We went 8-man because it's best for us, and we want to, we want to be good for a long time in 8-man. Become the 11th 8-man, so to speak.
Yeah, and to go back to your point, I think there are some, one of the things we're facing here in Maine is that we're having to cancel some sub-varsity games because, we're sitting at, 13, 14 freshmen maybe to roll over and go play somebody, or, if you're at a smaller school, maybe that's your JV number. And certainly instead of canceling those games, I think it'd be a great idea if we got together and if we got to play 8-man to, get some of those in. I think we do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Also had on my list, like your summer prep. So like, do you guys do 7-on-7 in the summer? Or do you do 5-on-5 and seek out other 8-man schools? What does that look like?
Yeah, we did some, I don't know if we call them jamborees, but we invited 4 or 5 teams on, we did 3, John, last summer? 3.
I think we had 3
Friday nights. We hosted 2, and I think Gray New Gloucester hosted 1. So yeah, I mean that opportunity, and we've been talking to those folks again. I'm assuming it'll be more regional in the summer with 26 teams now, but we hope to, depending on this pandemic, of course, have a few 7-on-7s, and then the usual stuff. Our weight room's open 8 to 9:30 every morning, and we do some individual skill stuffs after that. So yeah, very similar to what you guys do, I'm sure.
What anything I didn't hit on that you guys wanted to talk about tonight?
No, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. I think that as we're moving forward, I think after last year, I think it's going to be nice. There'll be 2 separate state championships this year. So I think I don't think it could have played out much better, other than maybe the small school Cinderella upsetting the large school last year. But that's just a personal preference. Yeah, I think, in terms of the way we rolled it out, and the MPA promoted it, we promoted it, the other 9 schools, I think it's here to stay and probably going to grow again.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, we joked a little bit about the schedule, but I think we got a schedule put together that's going to, keep the travel down a little bit, which isn't a huge concern when you go to 8-man, because you realize there's probably some more travel involved. But now having 26 teams, that's got to be a little bit better, where you can avoid some of those, 3+ hour trips.
It was very well received. I think all 26 teams chimed in and thumbs up. It was, by the way, for those of you that don't know, Mike pretty much he did do the schedule. So it was real quick and well done.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I'm going to shut the recording down, and then if everybody wants to come on and turn your cameras on and turn your mics down, or turn your mics up and just kind of ask some questions of these guys, or just have a little bit of a conversation, I'm all for it. So I'm going to